Hello, hello, hello. We are doing a trade recap. Let me just check the audio. Hello, hello, testing. Hello, what's going on? That's pretty solid. I vibe with it. I vibe with it. Man, my neck is so sore. Frick, man. Squeaky, man. Okay. I don't know if anyone's gonna be joining today, but that's okay. The Lord is here, present among us. Let's get it. I'ma just give it a couple of minutes. Maybe someone will come and join along, but maybe not. I don't know. You see these? You see these, man? Mount Franklin sparkling water, man. They go hard, bro. This is a pineapple flavor, man. These go good, man. Refreshing, flavorsome. You gotta love it. You gotta love it. Last night, price action, absolutely atrocious. What is this, bro? What is this, man? We got market open. What is this, man? This is terrible. Terrible price action. That's alright. It is what it is, man. This week has been an absolutely terrible week in terms of price action. Um, Personally, I think everyone who trades the Nasdaq can agree we had some good moves in London. London session was better than New York this week. But every single time we had market open, Monday was a bank holiday. We just had dumps like this at 9:30, which we don't trade opening bell. I did trade opening bell this week, and that is a new rule that we don't trade opening bell, and that's why. So we just had this dump, and then after that, price was just that is just stagnant. Just not very good price action there. Um, and then again, same thing on Wednesday. We just had a dump here again. Now this day, I was waiting for the long setup all session. It did not end up. My personal model did not show up until I think 12, which I went to bed at that point. So there was nothing there either for me. And then another exact same thing Thursday, 9:30 dump. I was bearish once we hit this 15 gap. I was waiting for it to get up in there. Look, there was a setup to go long to the gap, but I didn't take it because we already hit the 1 hour, I think it was. Yeah, sorry, is this 1 hour bearish gap here, this one. We already hit that right there. So I figured we could go short from there, so I didn't bother going long up into the 15. After the 15, we waited for the short. We got one decent setup, which I took, which ended up losing. But due to that loss, I've gained a new rule with my model, so that's a good loss. As we gained some knowledge there, and then the short again ended up happening right here. This is a really good setup for my model at 130, which formed. Which had the short there would have been a really good trade, but again, I was asleep. Because afternoon session is just too late. It's around 4 a.m. and I got work every day, so I ain't got time for that. Um, alright. Yo, guys, welcome to this week's trade recap, where I'm gonna go over my trades that I took this week, some losses that we took this week, what my draw was, and an analysis for the next week. So let's get into it. So we'll start off with what my draw was for the week overall. So for the weekly chart, that was last week. So this week we're in a bearish gap. Now for me, if we move over to the daily chart, this was where more my bias was formed. So last week we had I had long bias as we hit that weekly gap right here. So last week we hit that. Now I actually thought we were going to come down to this daily imbalance because where I set my draw, I usually use a lot of internal to external, external to internal draw and liquidity. So once we took this high, so this was our previous range, daily dealing range. So we had this swing low to swing high, so that's a dealing range right there. So we obviously hit the internal going to external. So once we exited that range, which was on this high here, we've exited the range. So now we have a new range of these lows here to that high. So my bias, honestly, last week was bearish into this one because I figured the daily was up to an internal draw on liquidity and the only daily gap was here. Now it hit the weekly gap, which is also an internal draw, and that was enough. So after it hit the internal gap for the weekly, that was enough, obviously, for the market to go to the external draw. So I did take a loss, and this is last week on Wednesday due to that factor, but yeah, so I switched my bias to long, and we got some wins on the Thursday and Friday. Anyway, tracking back to this week, we were at the absolute, we exited the range once again on, sorry, this was my draw for the week, was this high. Okay, now reason being, once again, internal on the weekly gap to external high. So that was my draw for Monday for the week in general, which got hit on Monday. So from Monday, I figured, hey, we are at external high here. So I'm like, okay, the draw's got to be internal because we still have not hit a daily fair value gap all month. So my draw turned its attention down to here to take out these lows, or as just the first point of interest to re-enter this weekly gap. That was my draw after Monday. Okay, so Monday was a bank holiday. However, I did take a trade during London session. As I said, that was my draw. Sorry, I'll redraw that out. That was my draw. So for Monday, it was honestly really nice. Like the way the market moved on Monday was honestly really nice. So we had this 4-hour massive bullish gap here, which you can clearly see it's going to internal to external, back to internal. So now draw is this external high, which is relatively equal with our other external high. So that was my draw for Monday. Now, we've already hit the 4-hour internal. So the 4-hour chart's ready to go to the external. And on the 1-hour time frame, if we go to Monday, which is just here. So on Monday, I was looking for it to, what was I looking for it to do? Sorry, am I on the right Monday? Oh no, this is the right Monday. Yeah, sorry, I was getting confused there. So I was looking for it to tap. That's right. This bullish 1 hour. So the 4-hour had already tapped the internal draw. And Asia was coming down. So I wanted a reversal from this 1-hour gap right here. And once London sessions start, as we can see, we tapped it perfectly. So at at London, I was like, look, we've hit the internal draw for the 1 hour in Asia already. Like, yeah, I expected London to hit that. So I was like, look, London's really looking just like a continuation up to the external high. So from 2 a.m. is like when I like to start trading. And we came down and tapped this 1 hour gap right here. So I'm going to take our attention to here. I think this is where I took the long setup. So we tapped to the 1 hour gap internal, again, internal to external high. So then we dropped down and it tapped the 15-minute gap as well. So we've tapped the 15-minute internal, the 1 hour internal. This is looking good. We're going with order flow. We're not going against the order flow. So then I'll turn attention to 5. And so once we tapped the 15-minute and the 1 hour, for my model personally, I need a 5-minute to agree with everything. Now, what I mean by that is I need the 5-minute order flow to be bullish in this instance. So we violated, if we take the last 5-minute dealing range, which is this low, as we took this low here, to that high, below equilibrium, this is an order block. So on tapping the 1 hour and 15-minute, that's the incorrect order flow for the 5-minute chart. So me personally, I need this 5-minute gap to get violated. Okay, right there. So that's what I was waiting for. And obviously we got it. So now we have 5-minute back to bullish order flow. We have the 15-minute internal to external. We have the 1 hour internal to external, 4-hour internal to external, all bullish to the external high of the week. So we have a ton of stuff going for us here. So now I'm going to take our attention to the 1-minute chart. So now that we've had the 5-minute form, we're going to look between this level here on Monday 14th. So now we go down to the 1-minute chart. Sorry, got to scroll back a bit. Okay, here are our levels here. Okay. So once we had the violation, this is where it took set up. So for my model, now I don't really want to speak too much on my model because this look it. Sorry, what am I doing? I'm clicking on the wrong screen for this. Okay, my model. I don't want to share too much on it. It's ICT concepts, but it's what's worked for me. What I've seen appear in the market. I haven't seen anyone else trade. My model is insanely specific. I haven't seen anyone trade like this, so I don't really want to spill too much on it. But no one's watching, so the secret sauce is in the first few videos for real. So my model, we've got the 1, the 15, the 5. So once we've got the 5, now we drop down to 1 minute and we need a dealing range. 1 minute dealing range. That's what we trade within. Now, what is a 1 minute dealing range to me? An intermediate low to high, or intermediate high to low, depending if you're bearish or bullish. We're bullish, so we want an intermediate low to high. What is an intermediate low? An intermediate low is a swing high or low with a swing high or low to the left and the right of it. So this would be an example of an intermediate low, because we have a swing low to the left, swing low to the right. That's an intermediate low. Now, another intermediate low or high is a swing low or high that taps a fair value gap. So this right here tapped into this fair value gap. That's an intermediate high. Those are the only two factors. So this low right here did not tap a fair value gap, or it also does not have a swing low to the left or the right of it. This is an insignificant low. That's what I call it. So I don't really care about that low. That does not go. So for example, we took an intermediate high over here. If we took that low, doesn't matter. Still good range for me because it's not an intermediate low. So it's a little complicated, but that's my model. So we've had the 5 minute close up around here. So we have an intermediate low taken over here to that intermediate high taken there. So we have a great 1 minute dealing range. And I don't know if you noticed on the 5 minute chart, we also had a bullish gap, which it came into. This was a good setup, man. Perfect setup. So coming into our dealing range, we have no risk of a negative range. So when I trade, I do not want a negative dealing range going into these 5 minute gaps, 15-minute gaps. So let's say, for example, this was an intermediate low. And, sorry, let's say, for example, the range was this big. Let's say this low came all the way down to here. And this was an intermediate low. If there's an intermediate low above equilibrium, and we take an intermediate high, I want what's within equilibrium. So for it to come to equilibrium, it has to take this intermediate low, which is what? A negative dealing range. I don't want that. So that's why this trade was perfectly safe. There's no intermediate lows at all. So the risk is extremely low. So I took this trade once it tapped the 5 minute gap. Can't remember exactly where it was, just somewhere around here. Now where I place my stop, I have to cover everything so I don't get stopped out, and then it goes off without me. So for me, 70% retracement is the biggest retracements I usually see. This only did a 50% retracement. So this is my 70% level, so I want to cover 70%, but I also want to take into account different factors. So you've got this inverse gap here. I want to cover that, which means stop would go there. However, there's a bullish gap here, so I want to cover that. Stop would go here. However, there's an order block here, so I want to cover that. So when I get below 70%, I'm like, okay, that's cool, but I'm pretty sure I put my stop below this one just to cover absolutely everything. Because we're in Asia session and London session, it's a bank holiday. You got to take these things into consideration. So if it came all the way down here, I'd still allow for it, as long as it doesn't violate the 5 minute. As soon as we violate that 5 minute bullish gap, I don't want in. But with my model, I'm pretty much just trusting it's going to hold up, which it ended up doing. So I'm pretty sure I put my stop out there, and I targeted that high that I was talking about. Now that looks like a 10-1. Now I did not get a 10-1, right? Because it was a bank holiday. I was a little bit skeptical with TPs and all that. So I'm pretty sure what I did is I just trailed my stop to my conditions. So like I said, I don't want negative range. So I kept trailing my stop. So we took intermediate high here. So where's the intermediate low here? So I would have trailed my stop to this low. Cool. And then we go keep following. This high is no intermediate lows. Um, take these highs here. Are these an intermediate low? No, it's not having a gap. None of these intermediate lows. So I'm pretty sure my stop was there. And then we took this high. This is an intermediate low, so I put my stop there. And then again, take these intermediate high here. This is an intermediate low, so I put my stop there. And I'm pretty sure that's where I got stopped out. Now, I'm pretty sure there was a 5 minute gap here. So this is the only time within my model, if there's a 5 minute gap, like there was down here, and there's an intermediate low below equilibrium, you can still hold the trade even if it makes a negative range, only if it's in a bearish gap. You can allow for it. Or if you want to play it strictly, then you don't allow for it. And you just put your stop at the intermediate low. Which I think I've put at this one. But anyway, it ended up hitting TP, but like way later. But I ended up taking it. I think it was like around here. Now I took a bunch of partials. Yeah, it was about there. I took a bunch of partials on the way, and I only risked literally $100. Like I risked barely anything. I wish I risked more. But the reason I didn't risk a lot is because one, it's a London session. I'm a bit new to getting into the London session. Two, it's a bank holiday, so I wasn't too. I don't have the most experience trading a bank holiday. Um, and yeah, so those are my reasons I didn't risk a lot. But it was a really good trade. And like I said, we ended up getting stopped out here, and I took partials up here, so it ended up being like $280. So it wasn't really a 4-to-1 in terms of profit, but I need a drink, man. My throat hurts. So yeah, I am not focused too much on making money right now. I am focused on quality trades, sticking to rules, proving to myself I can be consistent in draw and consistent in following my rules. That's what I wanted for myself. So the past 3 weeks, we've had 3 green weeks now. Actually, I'm not going to count this week as a green week. It was a break-even week. Let's be real. But the last 2 weeks were green, and I feel like I've proven to myself I can be consistent in following my rules. Which is great, wonderful. Anyway, so I didn't trade the New Yorkers bank holiday. So now let's go Tuesday. Now I only won in London session this week, just by the way. So like I said, my bias is bearish from Monday. So once we obviously took all these highs, I was bearish to this gap and also further down. So that was my bias. However, for London session, on a London session, yeah, I did take a short in London. So I think Asia's up here. I think I was targeting. I can't remember. Let me have a look. Here I was targeting. I was targeting this gap. I think this 15-minute gap, because we were obviously on the decline. So yeah, and we're going from internal to external. So honestly, I don't really know why was I bearish. I mean, obviously the order flow is bearish, but I think we tapped this gap up here. Anyway, yeah, so I was bearish for whatever reason. Internal, external, all that. I'm pretty sure I got in here at the 15-minute tap. So obviously, a 15-minute order flow within our reach here. So now we'll take it down to the 5-minute chart. Here. So after we had the 15-minute tap of the market, again, what do I need? I need the violation of the 5-minute, right? So after we tapped that, we have this tiny ass fair value gap right here, 5-minute gap. I don't care if it's small, it's a gap. A gap's a gap. So once we tap the 15-minute, we're still within 15-minute order flow. Boom, we violated the 5-minute gap. Perfect. That's all I need for my confirmation, for my draw to go short, down to that 15-minute gap. So now I'll drop down to the 1. So that occurred at 3:40. We had that. So now I'll take our attention to where the hell is price? Alright, here. Okay, so 3:40 we had the, so it would have been 3:45 that candle would have closed and we had the violation. So same thing. We have intermediate high to intermediate low. Perfect range. No risk of any highs or intermediate lows getting taken. No risk at all. So obviously we got in around here somewhere. I don't remember. Cover everything with a stop. I would have put it up here or here to cover that gap or something like that. And I entered short somewhere here. I don't know, stop there or there or whatever. And I ended up taking profit at that low. So it was a little 2-to-1. Again, I didn't risk much. I probably should have. But again, London session, and yeah, I'm still getting more confident in my stuff. So I'm definitely gonna start risking more next week. Now this is a really good example of because obviously my draw was I think it was this low, or it was a 50-minute gap. It was a bit lower though. Now once we took this low, I was like, I think I'm just gonna take it off. I was watching a movie with the missus, and I didn't want to stress about it. So I was like, I'm just gonna take it off. Now, here's a really good example of what I mean by you can still trade with a negative dealing range with the 5-minute gaps. Okay, so here we have a 5-minute bearish gap, right? So I got out at this low here, but I'll show you why you could have held this trade. So you have the 5-minute gap. So if you wanted to be picky with it, obviously I put my stop here. Sorry, no, I took it off. What am I talking about? You could put your stop here because that creates a negative range. However, we're going into a 5-minute gap. Okay, so if you leave your stop up here at the order block, okay, so if you're trying to enter on a negative range, this is how I handle it. So going to a 5-minute gap, the candle which comes into the gap, okay, the 5-minute candle that comes into the gap, which is this candle here, 410. So this is the start of that candle. The candle that comes into the gap, you must wait for the entirety of that candle to finish. If you see it respect the gap and draw is on your side, you can enter. But it's crucial to wait for that candle which goes into the gap to close. Because I had yesterday, same thing, negative range, but it was going to a bearish 5, and my bias was bearish. So I was like, okay, I'm happy to take it, but I'm going to wait for the 5-minute gap to close. And it ended up violating the gap. So I was like, okay, obviously I'm not going to take this. So, yeah, so I could have left my stop up here and sit through this. And, I probably would have lost a little bit because my entry was probably around here somewhere. I would have lost a bit. But if I took partials, maybe I wouldn't have. So yeah. So as soon as you see it, respect it. Or here's a smarter way. Let's say you're in the trade, you're down here, take a partial, put your stop to the negative range. You get stopped out. Or put to break even, whatever. You get stopped out. Then, as soon as you see it, respect it, boom, you re-enter. That's a safe re-entry. Okay, because if it did not respect it, then it'd come up to your stop, you'd lose. So it's better to just go break even or the high, you get stopped out, and then look for the re-entry, or you just don't take the trade if it violates it. So as soon as you see this candle close down here at 410, what was the closing price? 650, which is this candle here. So as soon as you see it close below, boom, you can re-enter. Stuff above, order block, wherever. And then you get the nice move. So could have held that. So that was the trade I took in London. Okay. Now, so that was 2 wins, but again, I didn't risk much. Silly boy. Now, I'll tell you why I wish I risked much. Like more. Because New York. Now, New York session every single day this week was straight garbage for me. An ass. Now, one of the number one rules, which I did not stick to this week, for 2 days I didn't stick to it. I didn't stick to it on Tuesday or Wednesday. Is only trade according to draw unless I'm convinced otherwise. So, New York session on Tuesday, my draw was bearish, like I said. Now, I had a very nice long setup form. Okay. So, I don't even know where it was. Oh, here. So I had the high. Sorry, I gotta analyze this crap. Oh yeah. So we had the 5-minute gaps violated, right? Which is short, but I wasn't convinced because it was 9:30 opening bell, and there's also a new rule. Hang on, Hang on. Sorry, I just gotta message my Combank. What is going on here? What the frick? That's crazy, bro. I'm gonna have to call those people. Anyway, so we had the violator, so we had everything there, right? However, I wasn't convinced because it's 9:30 opening bell, and I think the other reason was 15-minute gap was getting hit, and the order block did get taken. So everything was actually there for the short. But I wasn't convinced because it was 9:30 opening bell. It's very erratic, and it actually ended up failing. I'm pretty sure. Yeah, it just came out, took the high, so it failed. So this is what was going through my head at the time. I was like, okay, that setup just failed for the short. That's a perfect setup. 15-minute order flow taken. 5-minute gap taken. 1-minute dealing range. But it just failed. So I was like, okay, well, my bias must be wrong. So once we had this order block taken, so we're back to 5-minute in the correct way. So I took the long. And that was what was going through my head. And obviously, it didn't work out. Now, I risked way too much on the long. I risked like $300 on the long, um, which was again against bias. So anyway, it is what it is. But I should have stuck to draw. And now, because of this though, the 9:30 opening bell, short setup failing, and then it going short to the bias. 9:30 to 9:45. I'm ignoring from now on. I'm not never trading 9:30 opening bell. I'm only allowed to trade after 9:45. That's my rules now. Um, and yeah, we ended up getting obviously the short happening, but there was no chance of entry. It just dumped, like in terms of my model. So that was a losing day because after that, um, I can't really remember what my draw was or anything like that, or what I was thinking that day. But I didn't take a trade for the rest of the session. Um, I think my draw was like after that huge dump. What was it, Tuesday? Why didn't I go short? Oh, that's right. I think on Tuesday I was waiting for the 1 hour tap or the 15-minute bearish gap to go short again. But it never happened, so I just didn't take a trade. So that was Tuesday. And then my bias for Wednesday was actually bullish into this 1 hour gap. So my idea behind it all was we're at external low of the week. So for me, external lows and highs are highs of the day, low of the day, high of the week, low of the week, and then weekly and daily dealing ranges. So we're at the low of the week here. Um, yeah, we're at low of the week. So for the London session, I was looking for a long up into that, uh, up into there, which I don't think ever happened. Yeah, I'll see if I go from two. We tapped this one order block, so I'm curious if there was anything there. I don't think anything was there for me, so I don't think I took a trade, but I'll have a look. So we tapped. Yeah, I remember I didn't take a trade. I think with this one, 245. Let's have a look. This is Wednesday, I think. So 245, we had the violation and everything. Um, so we had the intermediate high to low. I'm pretty sure the range was massive. Yeah, so intermediate high to low, the range massive. So I want equilibrium, and to get to equilibrium, we had to make the opposite range. So that's why I didn't take that trade. And it ended up violating the gaps and all that anyway. And then I think I tried to go long again. Well, I was looking for the long again, but once again, it made this huge range from intermediate. That's not intermediate low. So that was the range. I wanted equilibrium, and after the range just becoming so massive to get to equilibrium, we had to take this intermediate low, so that would make negative range. Um, and then yeah. So let's have a look here at 4. Okay. And yeah, so at 4 there was actually a good setup here. See the 5-minute violation at this candle close. So 4:10. No, it would have closed at 4:15. So here. So to go short, again you need the range, which is there to there. So 15. So if it came up, you probably could have taken that, but it ended up needing to come to equilibrium. Again, this is intermediate high because there's a swing to the left and right of it. So to get to equilibrium, we had to make the wrong range. So it didn't take that trade, and there was just nothing there. So I think I just sacked off London. So I didn't take London trade. Um, that's what I love about my model is it is insanely specific with what you need in terms of 1 minute ranges, 5 minute, everything lining up, everything being nice and perfect. And when it helps you avoid choppy conditions because when it's choppy, my model will not give you a setup to take. And as you see, it was just sideways, just crappy movement. So anyway, then we woke up for New York session on a Wednesday, which again my bias was that way far away. My bias was this 1 hour gap, external to internal. So from again, it was just 9:30 dump. So we had the 9:30 dump. I was waiting for this because when this candle opened at 10, there was a potential for a 1 hour gap to be created. So if that got created, I would have gone short from there, but it didn't. It got fully covered. So from that point, I was just looking for the long and just waiting and waiting and waiting and waiting for the long. And the setup didn't show up for me until the afternoon session. But I do not trade afternoon because I'm in Australia. It's way too late at night to trade afternoon. But anyway, we'll take through Wednesday. So here. So I was looking for the long, right? Ooh. So obviously I needed a 5 minute violation. So we didn't have any of that until here. This was so annoying, eh? So these candles, I was just waiting for it. I was just waiting for it to close this so I could take the damn trade, and it never closed it. Not one bullish gap closed it to a T, bro, to a T. Like it closed perfectly in the gap, which is not a violation. It's got to close over it at least one tick, and it never did. So I couldn't take it. And look at that. It ended up violating the 5. This is what I'm saying. This model is so specific and it avoids getting clapped. So anyway, at this point I went to bed. But I'll show you where it actually worked out. Here, we finally got the violation. Right here at 12:40. So at 12:40 we got the violation. Boom. Violated on that close. So now what do we need? What do we need? What do we need? Dealing range. Intermediate low. Here. So what do we need? We need an intermediate high taken. Now, never happens, does it? Until here. Intermediate low to intermediate high here. Now, to come into our range, there's no intermediate lows here at all. Okay? So, there's no intermediate lows. So let's have a look. So it takes this high. Is this an intermediate high? Nope. This is still valid range. So this is all valid range. And remember, you got to cover everything. So what do we have? This inverse. So we got to cover the lower gap of that inverse there. We got this gap here, and this inverse we got to cover down here. So stop must be at least below this gap here. At least. So if you went long, you know what I just realized? That's crazy. We actually violated a 5 minute gap. Alright, well, that's awkward. This is what I would have done in that instance. So I probably would have been in. I'll be completely honest. I would have been in the trade with my stop here. As soon as I saw that 5 minute get violated at 3:15, so at 3:20, so This is when it would have got violated, right? Right here. So maybe I would have had my stop here. Maybe I would have lost this trade, honestly, because I don't want the 5 minutes to get violated. So I probably would have put it below that order block there. But if you're covering everything, you got to put it there. And this is why. Because when this stuff happens, like we violated the 5, now I'm like, crap, I got to get out. So what do? I leave my stop where it is, and I just put my take profit to break even and hope it gets me out before it dumps. Now, obviously, we had, is that a gap? We had this bearish gap here, get violated at 330. So at 330, so let's just say I got out at break even. But at 330, we reviolated the 5 minute, so the trade's back on. We have draw 5 minute, and now we see the 1 minute dealing range. We have these intermediate lows taken here, so that means we need what? We just need a load of highs. So from 330, boom. So we need to take this high at the moment, but we take what? This intermediate low, cool. And we have the intermediate high there. So that's the range. And over here, we have it doesn't take an intermediate high. That's not intermediate high. This is, but it took it when this low didn't even exist when it was taken. See that? This low did not exist when it was taken. So this is a valid range. We have no intermediate high to low. Oh, I'm capping. There's one right there. So once again, we have negative range. We have negative range occur, and there's no 5 minute gaps. So once negative range happens, we're not interested in entering the trade anymore. So we need another range to be bullish. So we have these intermediate lows. We need an intermediate high, which is this one. So as soon as that's taken, we have intermediate high to low, perfect range. Boom, enter here. If you waited for equilibrium, you would have missed out. But if you enter here, stop there, and you finally get a move, and there you go. But I'm not going to act like you would have won, because obviously we're targeting the 1 hour, right? Wherever that was. So I probably would have been trailing my stop. You probably would have got out of break even. So I'm going to be real. I probably wouldn't have won that day. Or I would have just stopped out break even. So, but hey, what was price doing? Just going sideways. So it's fine with me. And then we had Thursday. So Thursday, I was like, bro, London's 100% going into this 1 hour. Like, it's got it. So that was my draw for London. But there was no chance. No chance, because I like to trade from 2. I was waiting for a 15-minute tap or 5 or anything, but it never happened. It just shot all the way up to the 1 hour gap. So from the 1 hour gap, I was only interested in short. So from London, from New York, I was interested in short. And once again, we had 9:30 dump. 9:30 dump once again. Um, so anyway, we had the 9:30 dump. So I was like, that's wonderful. I was still short though, so I was waiting for this 1 hour to get tapped here and to go short from there. Now I think you could have. There was definitely a long setup to go for the 15. I didn't take it because I figured we could have gone short from the 1 hour and not worry about the 15, so I didn't take it. Now once again, I'm short from the 15, and once again there was no setup until the freaking afternoon session. So I didn't get nothing. However, I'll be completely honest. I lost a trade here. So we had the violation of the 5. Beautiful. That's what we want. Now we need the range. So let's go from 1230. Okay, so here it was violated. Now this was a very risky trade. We had the intermediate high to low. Now we had an intermediate high here. And right above that intermediate high, there was a tiny, tiny, tiny 5-minute gap right there. So what did I say? When there's an intermediate high right near a 5-minute gap, you gotta be cautious. But that isn't why this trade lost, I reckon. Because the exact same thing happened and it worked. So I was thinking, what's going on here? When these candles were being painted, so when 1230 opened, there was a potential of the 15-minute gap. So let's say if this candle closed below here, there would have been a 15-minute gap, is what I mean. So when I took this trade, I was thinking, oh, this is risky because the 15-minute gap might try and balance this candle fully. Or, better yet, this 15-minute candle might create a gap and come into that gap, which is right at this stop right there. So, looking back, I don't think I should have taken this trade due to the 15-minute, not the 5, the 15. So, it ended up, well, what I should have done is I should have waited for it to come into it and then just see how it plays out. It ended up coming up, taking me out here, which I lost about 300, which was annoying because I stayed up so late. Like, this would have been at 3 something in the morning, and I had to work the next day. I waited all that time to get stopped out, but it's all good because I learned a lesson. If there's a 15-minute potential, we either wait for it to get, especially if there's an intermediate high. If there was no intermediate high here, I still would have taken it, but there was. So if there's intermediate high and right above that is a potential 15-minute gap, it's a no-go. Anyway, well, I'll take attention to the afternoon. So the afternoon session was absolutely brilliant setup, man. I'll show you this. So we've tapped 15, we've tapped 1 hour, we've tapped 4 hour, internal, external, and we're bearish order flow for 15, right? So the exact same setup formed that I lost on, right? But there was only one difference. One difference. I'll tell you why it's the exact same setup. This setup, we had 5-minute violated and a tiny 5-minute gap, an intermediate high there. This one, we have 5-minute gap, violated, tiny 5-minute gap, and intermediate high there. Exact same, right? Intermediate high, intermediate low. So see this intermediate high, the lows there. So that's why it's a good range. The gap didn't get violated till 1355. So at 1400 right here. Sorry, 14. Boom, we've got the violated gap. Now we have an intermediate high, and right above that's 5-minute gap. So that's risky, right? However, there was no. This is the only difference I could find with this trade. There was no potential 15-minute. There was no potential 15-minute gap that needed to be painted or anything like that. There was no chance of one. So you could have entered there, but it's still risky because there's a 5-minute. So you could have waited for a 5-minute tap, but even if you did, I'm pretty sure. Yeah, yeah. So tap the 5-minute. This is 100% would get taken out, right? This is a risky trade, like no doubt about it. This is a risky trade for sure. But there's no 15-minute potential. So you could have either waited for it to come into the 5 and then assess there, or just be like, look, I'm trusting the range. We don't want offset range, intermediate low, it's intermediate high. So I think you could have entered here. Let's just say you did. And target the lows. Man, what a good trade that would have been. 12 to 1. But unfortunately, I'm not waiting for that session. But yeah, so that was a good setup. Risky, but I think you can take it. Because as long as that 15-minute potential's not there. So anyway, I was a bit frustrated about that loss, but it's fine because we made it back in London. London was just better this week for me. So London, what was my bias? Let's have a gaze. So London, I think my bias was a 1 hour gap. So my bias was this gap here for the internal external. Obviously, I expect some manipulation. Like London, you got to expect it to go the opposite way to what you think the overall draw is. So I expected London to go up because my draw's down. So I got this 1 hour gap. That's what I was targeting. And so from 2 a.m., we had a really nice setup. So from 2 a.m. here, there was a 5-minute. So obviously, we're bullish order flow. There's a 5-minute tap right here. So this is where I entered. And I'll show you. So we had the intermediate. I'm pretty sure on the micro or some other chart, but it doesn't even matter. The last intermediate low on this chart is here, right? So that's the range, right? So below equilibrium, there's no intermediate lows within the R range. This isn't an intermediate low. It's all the way down here at 70% retracement. Plus there's an order block. Plus there's a 5-minute gap to hold here, right? So it's very safe, very very safe trade. So we tap the 5 now, but what about the 15? What if there's potential in that? Well, there's a 50-minute gap here. My stop was down below this candle, so even if it taps the 15, we're safe. So this was an insanely safe trade. So I entered on the 5-minute, which I think was there, and I believe my stop was there, and I targeted the 1 hour gap. So it was a beautiful 3 to 1 trade, which I posted on my story. And again, we just followed it with what we need to follow. So once we took these intermediate high here, right, this became an intermediate lows. There's a swing low to the left and right, so I trailed my stop here, right, so my stop was there. Then we continued, take intermediate high again, so I trailed my stop to that one, because I don't want negative range, right, unless there's a 5-minute gap. And there was none. There was no 5-minute gaps. So if there's no 5-minute gaps, I definitely don't want a negative range. Like, why make a negative range if there's no gap to go to? So then again, we had intermediate high to low, and I think my stop was there. And then this was still the perfectly fine range here, 235, plus there was a gap right here. So we don't want this to get violated. If that got violated, I probably would have taken it off or hold it, because we're still valid range. So, but it goes against the rules. So I probably would have taken it off, but it ended up holding, and then we took intermediate high to low again. So I just put my stop there, and then we ended up taking profit, which was really nice. Ended up going higher, way higher, and then we get to this monstrosity of just terrible price action. So last night there was no trade for me, nothing formed. I was looking for the short, but we never got anything to the bearish thing. So we had this high to low here, like we had all the things violated here, but I don't trade until after 9:45, and after 9:45, we just look at that, took the high. So then we needed this order block taken, because we had the high to low here, the 5 minute range, which never happened until here. Um, so that would have been the order block taken. So then I could have taken the short from there, but I don't think there was a valid range, and it was in the afternoon anyway. So I didn't take a trade. So that's my recap. So yeah, oh, let's just make sure there's no like freaking. So yeah, it's in a break even for me. So let's see, what was the starting balance? When was the start of the week? 14. So on the 14th, my starting balance was. Oh, it doesn't tell me. There we go. It was 5,600. So 50,682. So that was my starting balance for the week. So up 200 for the week, but once we got up on that trade, if I risked more, like if I risked more on that Monday and Tuesday, I probably would have passed. But it doesn't matter. Um. So yeah, and I actually did take another loss. Sorry, I forgot to add this one. After we entered the 1 hour, we had this violated, and I think we had a valid range, which didn't end up working out because we needed a liquidity sweep. So that's a new thing as well. If there's no liquidity sweep, or really, it's not really about that. It's more about the 15-minute needing to be like taking that trade. We're going to a 15-minute gap, plus the 15-minute is still obviously bullish, so it's going against the grain. So you kind of want 15 minutes to be on your side. Like I notice all my winning trades have all been trending with 15 minutes. That's the trade recap, man. That's the trade recap. So, what is my bias for this week? Personally, I'm still bearish. I still think we need to hit a daily uh, fair value gap. So, my bias is here, but at the absolute lowest, the weekly gap. I think this is going to be a total soup. Um, we've already hit the 4 hour internal here, so we can go short here. And we have S&T with ES on this high here. And, you know, we're in that 4 hour big bearish one, so Monday I'm looking for a short. Definitely looking for a short. So we have this 15-minute low to high. So I need this low taken. And whatever. So, yeah, man, I'm bearish for next week. So, yeah, man, that's my weekly recap. So hopefully next week I'm probably going to risk a little more. Hopefully we can pass next week. That'll be good. But yeah. Thanks for watching. And I'll see you next week. I'll be trading every day. So come join. And yeah, thanks for watching.